last hour, I spoke with Gina McCarthy, the White House National Climate Advisor. Here's part of that conversation.
This is going to be the biggest leap forward we can ever make to actually move forward with climate and clean energy. We're actually bringing the labor community along. We're bringing investments in manufacturing. We're giving families an opportunity for efficient appliances so they can save money. We're looking at efficient, clean car technologies that they can now be able to afford. This is just a remarkable plethora of good news for our communities.
All right, now let's get the take from the other side. Joining me now, former Trump White House Communications Director Alyssa Farah Griffin and former Trump campaign advisor David Urban. Hi to you both. So President Biden has been racking up wins. The American Recovery Act or COVID stimulus package, nearly $2 trillion. Infrastructure and Jobs Act, $550 billion. Chips and Science Act, $280 billion. And now what Democrats are calling the Inflation Reduction Act, which is expected to raise $700 billion in government revenue. Now, David, first to you, you may not like what is in some of these bills, but would you concede that President Biden is one of the most legislatively successful presidents in modern history?
Well, Pamela, I don't know about that. And just to take a step back, you're reading off these giant numbers, trillions of dollars. That money is not free. That money's coming from you and me and other taxpayers.
But in this latest bill, for example, they have ways of also raising money with taxes, such as the 15% minimum tax on corporations and so forth. But go ahead. But hold on. But let's just talk about, I know you want to, as I said at the outset, David, there are going to be things you do not like in this bill. That's one of them. You think it's too expensive. You think it's too expensive. But can you concede that that look, President Biden has been on a roll lately with these wins, with these legislative wins?
Yeah, I don't know if it's Joe Biden's on a roll, but Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are on a roll. I didn't see Joe Biden up on the Hill twisting arms and making this happen, so I would withhold just some applause there. But I would say that the administration and Democrats writ large have had a successful week in passing what is incredibly progressive legislation. So yes, if you're looking at subsidizing Teslas for the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, then they had a big week this week.
Okay, well, we got to move on because we have a lot to get to. But in addition to this, of course, you have lowering gas prices. You have the jobs report that came out on Friday that was better than expected. Alyssa, of course, inflation is still a thing, but what do you think?
So, I mean, undoubtedly, this was one of the best weeks that President Biden has had in office. And I would actually note the one thing all three of us can agree on is taking out one of the world's foremost terrorists.
That
is always a win for America. That said, and I've said this before, I'm not convinced, you can name this bill anything, but that it's actually going to reduce inflation. Time will tell. I hope it does, by the way. I think I care more about Americans being able to afford their groceries and gas than I do denying a win to President Biden. But it's late in the game, and just kind of to get into the politics of it, midterms are here. And even if these victories end up working to slowly bring down the incredibly historically high inflation rate, I don't think it's enough to really swing the economic wins enough to help Democrats, certainly keep the House. But I also think I think the Republicans still have the advantage in the Senate.
And economists are mixed on whether this bill will actually reduce inflation. But I want to ask about something else. You have CPAC going on this past week. I want to ask you about the former President Trump, because during his speech at CPAC last night, he went after someone you know well, Cassidy Hutchinson, specifically about her testimony that Trump had a confrontation with the Secret Service and also threw food at the walls of the White House. Listen.
I know these people. These are very strong people. It's just not my deal. And I started to choke him. I felt, when the story came out, some people said, I never knew you were that strong physically. And then they said I started throwing food all over the White House. No, I have too much respect for the White House. But that somebody could sort of believe, but to think that I'm going to be jumping into the seat, grabbing a wheel, being rebuffed, grabbing this big, powerful guy, his neck is like this, and grabbing, I'm going to take him.
And this is the same event that featured an exhibit with an actual convicted January 6 rioter, fake crying in a fake prison cell. Alyssa, what is your reaction to all of that?
Listen, unfortunately, CPAC, which I attended for many years, has kind of devolved into just like performance art. It's the entertainment wing of the GOP. That bit that the former president did, sure, he can make light of the one piece of Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony that was hearsay. It was something that was shared with her by Tony Renato. But of course, he doesn't touch the countless credible claims that she made about him wanting people to come armed onto the ellipse that day, saying they're not here to hurt me, knowing that they were there only to hurt others, that he wanted to go to the Capitol. He doesn't address the substance of the investigation behind January 6th, and honestly is making light of one of the darkest days in not just his presidency, but American history, and I think it's fairly shameful.
David, to you, I want to ask you about something else. What Florida Senator Rick Scott, who chairs the National Republican Senatorial Committee, said today. He made a comment that voters should elect candidates they'd be willing to hire. But when he was asked this morning about applying that same standard to candidates like Herschel Walker in Georgia, here was his answer.
In Georgia, Herschel Walker, Republican Senate candidate, has lied about the number of children he has, about his business dealings. His ex-wife said he held a gun to her head and said, "I'm going to blow your effing brains out." In Arizona, the candidate Blake Masters called the Unabomber an underrated thinker. Would you hire these people to work for you?
Well, you'd go through each person, but I'm not the one doing it. It's the voters of those states are doing it. The voters of those states are going to make a choice.
You're trying to help Senate Republicans and lead them to victory. These are your candidates.
Is that a sufficient answer, David?
Yeah, well, Pamela, look, that's kind of unfair by Margaret to say that, because, Rick Scott didn't handpick these people. These people were elected by the Republicans in their state. They have a primary race. Their names are on the ballot. This information's out there, and people make a choice. People made a choice when they knew Donald Trump. They had heard Access Hollywood tapes. They went to the polls. They knew they were fully aware of those comments that he made. They made a choice. They make a choice in every election. They make a choice. When you go to the polls, they're fully informed as to what they're voting on, and the American people get what they deserve. But by the way, back to the the Inflation Reduction Act you were talking about earlier. The Penn Wharton budget model said it's going to have zero impact on replacing and reducing inflation. So just to put a little fine point on that.
You just can't let it go, can you, David? Can't let it go. As I said earlier,
it's tough.
Economists have been mixed about whether it will actually reduce inflation, and that is true. Thank you both. Great conversation. David Urban, Alyssa Farah Griffin. Really appreciate your time tonight.